Hello everyone, I'm your host Mariana and you're listening to A Degree Farther, the official podcast of the graduate school at Hood College, where we feature current students, alumni and faculty who are innovators on our campus and in our community. Hello Hood community, welcome back to A Degree Farther. Today we are starting our fall season with a very special guest. Joining us is Nikki Scott, whose journey is a true reflection of what it means to pursue education and family life with passion and purpose. Nikki is a proud mama and wife. She is also a social worker, self-published author, counselor, and college professor, holding a doctorate in social work, advanced certification in grief counseling, a certification in bereavement trauma, and training in perinatal mental health. Nikki is a proud member of the National Association of Social Workers, the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress, and the National Center for Crisis Management. Nikki aspires to make the world a better place through kindness, compassion, and validating others on their life journey. She lives in Michigan with her husband Cameron, their sons Liam, Brodie, and Zain, and their 4 babies. In our conversation, we'll explore Nikki's experience, the challenge she embraced, and the passion she has for thanatology, grief, and loss. Whether you're considering graduate school, navigating your own program, learning more about thanatology, or simply looking for inspiration this fall, Nikki's story offers both insight and encouragement. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we take a degree farther. Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of A Degree Further. Today we are with Nikki. Nikki, thank you so much for being here, for taking time to do this. Welcome, and I'm excited to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, if you can introduce yourself to the people that doesn't know you and tell us a little bit about your background, your journey.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Nikki. I received my bachelor's in psychology from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I met my husband. He's Canadian. And then I went on to the University of Michigan. I got my master's in social work with a specialty in geriatrics because I always knew I wanted to work with the older adult population. And then while I was interning at a hospice agency in the Metro Detroit area, I was hired on full time while I was finishing my master's because they knew how much I had fallen in love with the hospice work. So I was doing weekends there, and I decided 2 years later to go back for my doctorate because I enjoyed educating people about hospice and death and dying while I was a hospice social worker for those few years. So I spent 3 years getting my doctorate. Finished my doctorate in October of 2020 during the pandemic while I was pregnant with my first baby boy. And then I stayed with hospice. I got a job part-time teaching at Eastern Michigan University, social work courses. That's in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And then I had gotten a job first and then continued working. Sorry, my brain's all mushed up. And then stayed hospice social work. And then the last 3 years of my hospice work, I was a grief counselor. So I did about 8 years as hospice social work in every capacity you can: home care, care center, hospital, where you can be a hospice social worker. And then I always knew I wanted to be on the other side too, as a counselor, like a therapist. So I became a grief counselor for the last 3 years. I had our second boy during that time in 2022. And then I quickly realized I wanted to be with them, my boys, as much as possible. So I taught myself how to open my own private practice where I could be a therapist and help grief clients and then focus on maternal mental health as well. So I left hospice in 2023, started my own private practice, and then applied to be a professor in other capacities. So that's when I started reaching out to universities or colleges that had grief, death, and dying courses. Hood College was one of them. So I've been able to teach counseling 528, thanatology. This is my 3rd time teaching it. I teach full-time at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, and I've been able to teach death and dying there twice as well, and a grief interventions class there. And then we just had our third baby boy 11 weeks ago, so very busy over here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So
Yeah,
that's yeah, the history.
good. That's a huge resume summary. If you can tell us a little bit more of why that like or where the passion comes from, the passion to grief and death and the hosting and everything.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like before I would have answered in a way from a young age, I was drawn to it, but I think the whole time it was my destiny, and I'll tell you why. But um, I was 11 or 12 when my maternal grandfather, my maternal grandma and grandpa, my sister and I were with them all the time while our parents worked. So those were like our people. So I was like 11 or 12 when he came down with Parkinson's and dementia. So I watched his decline. And because I was at their house all the time, I took care of him too. Like I would toilet him and help him walk, and I like watched it. And that's a lot for a teenager to take on. But I realized I was comfortable with it, even though I was having feelings about it, I could handle it. And then he died, and that grief was so heavy. And it's 20 something years later, and it's still heavy. But I was able to manage it, and I was able, like, I had parents who did not deny the grief process. They let us have our feelings of grief and to feel everything. So watching him die, I'm like, watching him as he was dying, I can be with people in this space and be okay with it, right? And not take it on and be there for people. So that's, I think, what drove me to hospice. The brain part with his Parkinson's and dementia, I became fascinated with the brain. So like, I want to be a therapist one day to help people with their brains. And then as I got older, I realized now as a grief counselor, my dad, when he was 15, he lost his mom in a car accident. And back then, a 15-year-old who lost their mom, now me as a mom of boys, right? I'm like, holy cow, that's so heavy. And he never got any help or support to my knowledge for it. So I think on an unconscious level, it was my destiny to become like someone like my dad never got, right? Like to help people through their grieving process, to normalize it, to say it's okay to have feelings, to be there for people. So I think it all kind of led me to where I am now.
Yeah. It sounds like you are healing your story and your ancestors' story.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
For the people that is listening us and they don't know what is thanatology or
Mhm.
how that looks, can you explain us a little bit?
Yeah. So I feel it might be a Marvel character's name, Thanos, but Thanos in Greek actually means death, right? So if you break it down that way, it's the study of death and dying. But thanatology, as taught in like universities and colleges, is the study of death and dying with interdisciplinary, so other disciplines involved with it too, right? And different aspects of it. So the course I teach at Hood is across the lifespan, like understanding death and dying from like childhood through old age. You can look at it scientifically, psychologically. So it's study of death and dying, but with other disciplines involved, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that is starting to become a thing, but it wasn't at all. Like before, nobody was like allowed to talk about death and the fear around it. It was huge. So I found it essential to be able to have these conversations. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was like, I wanna bring someone that talks about these kind of things because the more we talk, the easier it gets.
Yeah, we have to get comfortable dealing with discomfort of things because that's like you kind of like you said with healing. That's how you heal and heal your, inner child, heal for the future because you're giving yourself the space to talk about these really hard things. And I think people want to talk about it too. They're just afraid to do it, or they don't want to make others uncomfortable or take on other people's feelings, so it's a hard thing to talk about, but hopefully we can keep making progress with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and to go more in that path, if you can share a little bit of how you prepare the students when you're teaching this class, how the class look like and how you prepare them professionally, but also emotionally for all the things that might come up for them while they are in the class.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like, especially with some of the harder topics of death and dying, like, I mean, it's all hard, but some of the more triggering ones, there's a trigger warning, right? Like some of these things could be triggering. But that's not necessarily a bad thing to be triggered because if we're learning about it as future practitioners in these courses and we're triggered by it, we know we're going to be triggered when we're in the field helping clients or people or communities. Even if we're like macro policy changers, we're going to get triggered by it. So it's good, I think, to sit in the discomfort. It's okay to have feelings about it too. I think I try to normalize, like if we're studying like pediatric deaths or, pediatric on hospice or grieving the loss of something that's really hard. That's okay to have feelings about it. Like being nice to yourself as a student and then as a future practitioner is really important. Self-compassion is really important. I think I try to talk about self-compassion a lot as a professor and then self-care too. Like what does it look like to protect yourself as you continue through your academia and then as a future practitioner too? How are you going to continue to protect yourself so you don't get burnt out, so you don't experience transference or countertransference? Yeah, just I think normalizing that it's okay to have feelings, and then what are you going to do with these feelings? So,
Mhm. And what about you? How you take care of yourself
yeah,
about death
that's a good
all the
question.
time and
Yeah.
sharing these huge topics all the time?
I think that so I normalize it too. Like I'm also a human, and I've been doing this work for um 14 years now, which is a long time, right? So the first few years, I was super young, super naive, still learning, and I would leave hospice support groups crying because it's really hard for, an early 20-year-old to sit and digest that. So it's okay to be human and to have emotions, right? Then you figure it out as you move forward. So supervision is really important no matter what field you're in, social work, counseling, nursing, whatever you're in, supervision is really important, I think. I encourage a lot of my students to do journaling because you need to put your feelings somewhere, moving your body in a way that feels good for you. But it takes time too. It's making mistakes, it's learning, it's having good supervisors, good professors as you continue to learn too, and then finding what works for you for self-care too. And then like having a good, healthy perspective on things as well. Because I think working in this field has been able to shift my perspective of being more grateful for what I have. Because you see it all the time, right? Death and dying, grief and loss. So you're more appreciative of what you have because you never know when it could be taken away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of life.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing we know for sure.
Yep. And that's what scares people the most, right?
Yeah. And what are some common misconceptions that you found that students have or people in general when you talk about these topics?
Yeah. On the grief side of things, as a grief counselor and teaching grief courses, a lot of people think that 5 stages are from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross are about grief, about grieving. They think that the 5 steps were created, and it's been like played in the media so much, right? Like if I go through anger and go through all these stages, then I'll come out the end of my grief as accepting of losing someone or something important to me. But she actually, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross actually conducted her study on hospice patients who were dying. So she created these feelings, based on people who are dying, not based on, which is still grief, but not based on people who have lost a loved one. So before she died, she came out later and said that like this was totally misconstrued. Everyone took it the wrong way. Um, and that she's also said it's not supposed to be linear. Feelings are not linear. They're more like a roller coaster. You don't move from one feeling to, like you can move from one feeling to another, but you're never going to reach an end destination point. And you don't ever get over the loss of something. Like it's really heavy probably, but then it gets lighter eventually and you can learn to live with it better. But I don't think you ever get over it. So that's another misconception is people think you just get over a loss or a death or whatever hard feeling you're having.
Oh, it's so powerful that you're saying that because one of the main things that people say when somebody else is grieving around anything is it's gonna be okay, it will pass, just give it time. Like all these invalidation maybe that happens sometimes out of not from a bad perspective or not to harm, but out of ignorance maybe.
Yeah.
And like and they're trying to help others, and that's what comes, but it ends up being very harmful. So it is so important that you're saying this because that give a little bit more of um hope or peace in terms of what to expect.
Like, I think it goes back to the we were talking about people can't sit with discomfort. So if you lose someone and you see all these people at the funeral and they're like they're in a better place and they're okay and you understand they're coming from a good place, but it's because inside they're likely scared, right? Because this is a representation of something that they'll experience if they haven't already is the loss of someone and they're so uncomfortable with their own feelings surrounding grief and loss and death and dying that they just want to offer solutions. People just, which is again, well-meaning people want to offer solutions. That's how we've been hardwired. Sometimes you just need someone to just sit there with you and say, I'm so sorry, this sucks. Or you're allowed to have big feelings, or, I'll call you and you can just cry, stuff like that. Like it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to be upset, not anything we can do to get rid of people's feelings. What can we do to make this person stop crying? Because I'm so uncomfortable with them crying in front of me right now. Just
Yeah.
sitting with them and letting them cry. That's what we do with my toddlers, right? Like we're just the whole shift in this, like just let people have their feelings. Let these little toddlers be mad. They're allowed to be mad. It's a healthy feeling. And then it'll pass. And then they'll be happy. And then they'll be mad again. Just like adults who are grieving.
Yeah, yeah, it's so contradictory sometimes how we, as humans, kind of inhibit or prohibit the most humanity things, like the most basic aspects of what make us human.
That's for sure.
um, Seeing now in the future, now that this is becoming a thing, which is amazing, what role you see that thanatology and grief and all these studies are gonna play in healthcare in general, or also in counseling, or even like in the community, in the world. Like what do you see in the future? How you see it, or what do you hope for?
Oh, so many hopes and dreams. I hope that university and colleges will start making it a required general education course or part of the curriculum instead of an elective. I hope that more hospice agencies will expand because under federal regulations, all hospice agencies have to have a bereavement department, but they don't all look the same. Like most of them just do the minimum of like condolence calls. The hospice I was at had an amazing grief department with support groups and free counseling. And I know it's based on funding, but I guess that's part of the wish is more funding for grief programs, more funding for hospice support groups, more people popping up and talking about, grief and loss. One of my aunts just founded a nonprofit agency called Love and Hugs for mental health. And part of her initiative with the whole mental health realm is to bring attention to grief and loss too. So I'm hoping more people will do it, even if it is uncomfortable and scary and they struggle with it. Just starting somewhere to talk about it is important.
Yeah, I hope that too.
Yeah.
If you could share one takeaway with our listeners about facing grief and supporting others through loss, it doesn't have to be one, like whatever comes to your mind, but what do you
Yeah.
what you would share with the people that is listening?
People closest to me will probably laugh because I say this all the time, but multiple things can be true, like at the same time, right? Because most people, especially grievers, invalidate themselves with their emotions by saying, but, like, I'm so sad, but she's in a better place. Multiple things can be true. I am so deeply sad, and I'm okay that she's not suffering anymore. Both things can be true. Multiple things can be true, right? Like, I can be so angry and full of so much love and happy at the same time, right? Like, I can and be hopeful because I get signs from her because that's what I believe. Stuff like that. Multiple things can be true. And I would say I would want people to push themselves with the uncomfortable feelings of if they're being invalidated to work on validating themselves, like showing themselves compassion. The way you talk to yourself, really, I mean, research shows that the way you talk to yourself is so important. So what are you telling yourself when your very well-meaning person says, you should just get over it. It's been 2 years, or they're in a better place. You can, hear that person, but then say, what are you going to say to yourself? Like, they're maybe talking from a place of discomfort, but I am going to validate myself and say my feelings are real and true for me, and I'm allowed to be sad. And just work on how you talk to yourself, I think, is important.
Mhm. Yeah, the what you mentioned about the black and white thinking is very harmful, and I feel like we were raised like that because it's easier just to let's just this or that and let's keep it that way. It's just easy. But then the more we grow and the more we do research and these kind of fields grow, we realize that there's no black or white most of like almost all the time. There's a bunch of grays in the middle. So yeah. And okay, and now talking about you and your future,
Yeah.
do you have any exciting projects or research or courses or anything that is exciting and going on right now or in the future?
Yeah, well, my boss at Oakland University let me create my own grief class last year, so I'm hoping to teach that again in Michigan in Rochester. It's called Grief Interventions, as for my work as a grief counselor, so that was really cool. I wrote and self-published a book for new moms a couple years ago about like the postpartum period. So it's kind of, I just call it therapy in a book, like validating new moms. But I'm hoping to write the second installment for the toddler years, but that's taking a lot longer because toddlers are you don't have as much time for yourself with toddlers as it should be. So trying to be present with them means that I don't have as much time to write. But I want to keep writing. I love writing. That's one of my aside from teaching and being a therapist, in my professional life, I mean, writing is really important to me. So I hope to continue writing, maybe have a grief book one day too. So that's
Yeah.
all the hope, but continuing to teach and to provide counseling as well is what I'll be doing.
If you can send me the name of the book and your email and any, I don't know, any tools or any information that you have, anything else that you wrote, so I can put it in the description of the episode for people to check it out. That will be amazing. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I'll send you also some of the books and memoirs I read about death and dying and experiencing being hospice workers, or some of the ones I've really enjoyed. I'll send you a list of those too, that have helped me as a practitioner in the field.
That will be awesome. Thank you. Well, we're already in the end of this conversation, but I would like to end with two things. First, if there's any listeners that are interested in thanatology or grief counseling, where you will recommend them to start learning, or what yeah, like I just forgot the word, but what advices or things you have to say to them in the hood community or outside of it for whoever that is interested.
Yeah. So in the hood community, I would say definitely these counseling classes that focus on death and dying and thanatology, even if that's not your major or your concentration, I think they're worth it. That's my own opinion. There are so many websites where you can take like free classes and like search, like death and dying or hospice work. And, I think one of them's called Coursera. Some I think you have to pay for and other ones you like can do for free. I love learning, so I'm always like listening to new things. Um, on a bigger scale, a website, it's called What's Your Grief? They offer courses too that most you have to pay for, but blog posts they have. They were two young women who lost their parents really young. So they wanted to create this, like atmosphere of people who were grieving or wanted to learn more about grief. I think you can get a certificate through them maybe. And then like on a more micro scale, I would say reach out to your local hospice organizations because like I said, all of them have to have a bereavement department, but I don't know how extensive like globally or across the United States bereavement departments are. Some of them are really built up nicely. So if you want to, you could ask to be a volunteer, like go through volunteer training to work in the bereavement department, or because most of us have experienced loss of some kind. You can attend a support group. Most of them are free. So find a local bereavement support group just to sit in on it and see how they're run, see how other people talk about their grief and loss. But hospice organizations are a really good start for that too.
Okay. I would like to add that I took one of your classes and I really love it. And in the middle of the class, someone mentioned the book Briefly Perfectly Human.
That was going to be on my list. That's such a good one. Yeah.
Oh, that book is amazing. I will highly recommend it.
I want to read it again. I just read it last year. I want to read it again already. It's a really good, yeah.
It's so good. And the class is so good too.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the other thing is, I don't know if you would like to add anything else, anything that I didn't ask, or anything that comes to your mind right now that you want to tell to the people that are listening.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you for the people who've taken the time to listen to this. I hope you feel validated in some way, like even if it's not grief related and like more mental health, that like all the things are true. Multiple things can exist at the same time. Healing is worth it, right? Just finding the things that work for you to like move forward. And it can change too. My self-care and, self-regulation techniques have changed over the years, and they're supposed to. You find what works for you in that moment, and then you move forward, and then you learn something new, and then so it's okay to be human. It's okay to be flawed. And, I hope you find ways to continue to validate yourself and offer yourself compassion too, especially in this world and climate we're living in, right? Find things that bring you joy, find a way to work on yourself to be the best you can be. I'm reading a book right now called Kindness Will Save the World. And they're just short essays about this author experiencing kindness. And they're just like random little things, like the lady at the coffee shop smiled at me, or I saw the sunrise today. But it's like those little things, I think. And if we continue to work on our own healing, I think that it'll have the ripple effect, right? Like if more of us continue to be kind and loving and compassionate, we will outweigh all of the other bad stuff happening. Just the kindness. I agree with the book title, Kindness Will Save the World. So that's where I am.
Yeah, I agree too. I think that I hope that we all at some point felt the kindness from another person, and that changed the day or the year or the month, and also when we are kind with other people, it changes ourselves too. So it's beautiful. Yes. I do believe in that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to A Degree Further, the official podcast of the graduate school at Hood College, where we help you go farther in your life, in your career, and in your community. Be sure to tune in next time and to catch up on all the latest episodes. Visit hood.edu/a degree further. I'm your host, Mariana, and thank you so much for listening.